Hey guys, we have a whole generation of men out there with no mentors. Want to know why the whole world is fracked up? We'll find out in the next 15 minutes here on TMF Warrior. If this is your first time watching our program, thanks for joining. We'd ask you to go ahead and like the episode, subscribe, and share. By the way, if you're wondering, did I just say the F word? Actually, it was fracked up, F-R-A, I think it's C-K-E-D. And I'm a big fan of Battlestar Galactica from the early 2000s. I think they went in and the governing body who obviously limits what you could say in normal television back then, the Sci-Fi Channel, said you can't say F word, but you can say fracked up. So that's what they said. So I thought it was cool. Hope you enjoy it. Listen, today, guys, this is going to be a heavy topic because it talks about mentoring the next man and empowering men to lead with purpose. It happened to me this week. It was pretty interesting how these episodes that I've put together have been happening in my life, and I've been able to use them to help you guys become better husbands, fathers, servants, and leaders. Men, I'm going to start by saying we're not meant to walk alone. That's a fact. We are obviously on this earth. We're born into this earth, but we can't do it alone. And we have to do it with other men in most cases. So for those of you who watch this and you're pretty much a loner, I hope you get involved with a men's group. And as TMF Warrior begins to grow, hope you get involved with us. Here's what the truth is. We're meant to build, to lead, and to pass the torch. Today, we talk about mentoring the next man and building your band of brothers. And this story is about helping to shape someone I know very well, my son, Jordan. Let me share with you a little bit about Jordan and about his story, because I think you'll find it very interesting. I'm going to take you guys back a few years. My son, Jordan Groeschel, is a former teenage world and national level powerlifter. In fact, back when he was, I believe, 19 years old, at the weight of 295 pounds, broke the national and I believe North American world record in a bench press. Now, the story goes that there was a Russian that held it for about 9 years. He came in, beat the guy by, I believe it was 5 pounds. So he did 555. But then he went back and broke his entire record again by another 55, 60 pounds. He ended up benching 606. And the most incredible part was he was drug-free, no steroids, nothing like that. If you know anything about powerlifting, they use called powerlifting shirts, canvas shirts, type shirts. I think it was a single-ply shirt. But if you know anything about that, that's pretty impressive. My son, for as good as he was a powerlifter, though, however, he was an incredible artist. And it was quite interesting because as I watched him grow and he got older and got in his early 20s, he would sit at home. I would hear, my wife and I would walk in from home when he was back visiting from college, and we would hear this classical music playing. And then we would come around the corner and see a canvas sitting in the, family room. And there's Jordan spinning a glass of wine and painting the most incredible picture. And I knew he had the finer things of life in his gut. I mean, I don't know about my side of the family, but certainly my wife's was very talented and very artistic. So it was interesting when one day he said to me, Dad, he goes, and this was a couple of years earlier, he said to me, Dad, I think I'm supposed to go to college to be a physician. I said, son, go get that etching book, that drawing book that you have. Let's take a look at one of your pictures. And he opened it up, and it was a picture of Marilyn Monroe. I don't know if I'll have it and I can show you on here, but we'll share some pictures that you'll see here. And I got to tell you guys, it was the most incredible picture that I had ever seen. And I looked at him, and I said, who can do this? Well, you'll see here that Jordan went on to become very successful. In fact, just recently, he's a renowned artist now, featured in exhibitions like the Museum of Contemporary Art. But behind the scene, I have stepped in recently, and I believe that he took me to Veterans Lunch at Outback Steakhouse. Thank you, Outback. And I don't get plugged for that. I don't get paid for that. I just want to say thank you for taking care of our veterans. And I'll remember talking to Jordan, and I said to him just the other day, I said, Jordan, I said, I want to share something with you. You're an incredible artist, but you're not a businessman. I'm not an artist, but I'm a good businessman. And I reminded him of the story about 10 years ago when I said to Jordan, Jordan, if you will draw a picture of the 6-time and 5-time at the time Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath, then we will take it to him and he will invite us to his after party and we will go to it. He said, Dad, I can do the drawing, but how are you going to get us in? I said, Jordan, you're the artist. I'm the businessman. I'll make it happen. So the other day, and by the way, it did happen. Phil Heath, if you're watching, I hope you are. You guys, you remember what a drawing he did, and I'm going to try to go ahead and share that picture so you guys can see it. It's an incredible drawing. And I'll show you the video. I mean, the picture where we're standing there on stage with Phil Heath. The other day, I said to him, Jordan, you have an incredible God-given gift. However, you're not a businessman. And you're now 34 years old, and you're going to miss the opportunity of life if you can't entrust someone to step in and help you and be your mentor in the realm of business. I said, if you remember, I helped you to get on stage with Phil Heath, and I can help you to get your artwork out into the art world. If you're watching it and you are in the art world, God bless you. Pass this on to those who are. And let him know Jordan is, his art is incredible. If you know anything about Salvador Dali, you will see he's very Dali-esque, and he's always been a big fan, lifelong fan of Dali. So I wanted to share with that, Jordan has always painted with passion, but I have built with precision. And I said to him, I said, Jordan, together, we could create something very powerful. My background, 30 years growing companies like Guardian Protection, ADT Security, Brinks Home, Dynamark. I said, I can help you build your brand, structure your business, and navigate the world of entrepreneurship. We're getting ready to take that leap of faith and work together. The good news is that I'm at a perfect age now where I can really help my son out. Now, why do I bring all this up? Men, let me say this. There are 3 steps that I'm going to share today that I've learned to help the next generation of men become successful. We have to break this curse of all of our men growing up and being aimless, being lost, and feeling hopeless in a lot of cases. I mean, the suicide rate has gone up through the roof, and you can read the statistics that are out there. The only way we're going to see men mature and growing to become warriors is if we, the men who are watching this show, we as leadership mentors, we mentor them personally to a new level. Around here at TMF Warrior, I call this step 1, empower through wisdom. We have to create a plan, step 1, to empower these men through wisdom. And the wisdom that we get is obviously from the Word of God. I'm a big believer in that. I know you are too if you're watching our show. And I'll never forget the scripture that I've learned, many, many years ago. Train up a child in the way he shall go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And for these young men who need desperate to get mentorship, it's our responsibility to do that. Recently, I was watching a video popped up and I was looking at it. And it goes back to a couple years ago when I went to church called Beach Church in Jacksonville, Florida, where a young man named Joby Martin was our youth pastor. He went on to expand and grow within Beach Church and had his services eventually growing to just a huge church attendance that he spun off a church of his own called the Church of 1122. And if you ask him what 1122 says, he says it has nothing to do with scripture. We meet at 1122 in the morning. So one of the fastest growing churches in America. I've known Pastor Joby for many years, and an incredible guy. I do attend a different church, a more liturgical church, where it's Hispanic in nature. And because my wife's Cuban, we do a lot of ministry at that church. But I want to share this, that here in this video that I'm about to share, he shares how biblical manhood is under attack and how mentorship rooted in faith is truly the answer. He tells his own story here of being mentored into ministry and challenges men to stand firm and act like men. He talks here with Coach Bull Lee, and you'll like this. Check this out.
And it was my football coach that led me to Christ, Coach Bull Lee. And there's about 100 middle school kids at this camp. And again, I was the grass cutter and the lifeguard. And he looked over at me and he said, "Hey, boy, when the singing's done, you're going to preach." And the singing we were singing, this is before the Passion Band invented worship. We used to sing this thing called "I Am a C" on an overhead projector. Any old heads know I'm a C? I'm a CH? I'm a CHRSTIN? Right. Well, I'm from Dillon, so I was in the 11th grade before I realized we were spelling Christian. I didn't know what we were talking about. I thought we were speaking in tongues and we were getting in trouble with the deacon. So anyway, so my man's up there singing "I'm a C" as hard as he can. And Coach Lee says, "Boy, when the singing's done, you gonna preach." And I said, "Coach, I'm not very comfortable speaking in front of people." And he said, "Boy, did you say comfortable?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He said, "Boy, do you think Paul and Silas were comfortable in prison? Boy, do you think Daniel was comfortable in the lion's den? Boy, do you think Jesus Christ was comfortable on the cross?" "No, sir, I don't think he was." And I said, "Well, Coach, what do I talk about?" He said, "Boy, that's easy. You talk about Jesus, you talk about 30 minutes, go." And that's what I did.
And that's so true. You know, when you watch this video and you see Joby talk about this, you know, it's really us men who need to help other men to that stage of their life. You know, I grew up in a somewhat difficult family. My father left us, we were pretty young, not on his own accord. I guess that you'd say that the mother couldn't stand no more and moved away and left my dad by himself, and myself and my three sisters moved back to Delaware. But not having him in his life definitely affected me. It affected me in a very negative way. And I cannot stress the importance, you men who have boys in your life, and I do not care, you know, what age they are. I don't care if they're 40 years old and you're a 65-year-old man, your boy still needs a mentor and they still need you in their life. You know, step 2 that we like to talk about here is leading with integrity. And I think some of you guys have heard of a pastor by the name of Groeschel. He talks about the responsibility, empower others through delegation, not just tasks where they create leaders. He shares how integrity and trust are the foundation of spiritual leadership. This is where Craig explains how empowering others with trust builds a culture of integrity. Watch this here.
Push the majority of the decisions deeper into the organization. You're a leader. Push the vast majority of the decisions that need to be made deeper into the organization. You can tell the strength of any organization by how deep decisions are made. If all the decisions are made at the top, you've got a very limited and weak organization. If you've empowered people throughout your organization to make decisions freely, that reflects a strong organization. So what are we going to do? A great goal to work toward is this. You make the decisions that only you can make and delegate the rest. Crazy, crazy important. You make the decisions that only you can make and delegate the rest. I do leadership events with my good friend, great teacher on leadership, Andy Stanley, and he has a talk built around this whole idea where he just has people say, "You decide, you decide, you decide." And this is an amazing concept. Someone comes to me, "Hey, Craig, what do you think about whatever?" You know what? You decide. "Hey, what do you think we should do about this?" You decide. Next time someone comes to you and asks your opinion, unless it's some decision that only you can make, flip it back and say, "You decide." Whenever you do that, what are you doing? You are communicating, "I trust you. I'm empowering you. I'm giving you the authority to create something." When you give that type of authority away, people learn to think for themselves. They grow as a leader. If they're always doing what you tell them to do, they're not going to grow. You're giving them the freedom to grow. So essentially you're saying, "You decide. I could tell you how to do this, but I trust you. You got way more in you. I'm not going to insult you. I'm going to believe in you and trust whatever you come up with.
So true. So true what he says there. Today I think I was out near the beach and I was listening to a podcast, and the gentleman talked about that very similar thing. He said, one of the greatest mentors he ever had, when he said, he had an idea or had a business idea or a project, didn't matter. When they said to Coach, well, Coach, I've got this idea, and he would tell him about him, and he'd say, am I crazy? He goes, well, what do you think? And he would say something like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think you should do? And he said, just not telling me to do something, but empowering me to let me make the decision as to what I think I should do, gave me the confidence that he supported me. He was allowing me to, entrusted me to make mistakes, but still had an integrity to lead me by example and also be there if I failed. And I thought that was so important. It's important to remember this, guys, that you don't mentor by being perfect. You mentor by being present, consistent, and honest. I mean, that's the truth. When I started TMF Warrior, started the idea and the vision of building a global movement of men that we could help men experience personal transformation to be the best that they could ever be on this earth. I started off probably in the wrong direction. I started off with the idea that all of this idea, this business idea that I had, was mine, and I was going to bring people on to tell them what to do. And nobody blossoms that way in this world. It wasn't that long ago that I recognized a couple key differences. Number one, it is not mine. This is the Lord's. This is a nonprofit 501c3 faith-based organization that is God's, and it's my job here to facilitate only what He wants to do. And that's really important when you're thinking about you as a mentor with other people. These are God's children, and He's using you as His vessel, as His tool to help His children. So be very open, right, to know that it's better for you to just trust in the Lord, like Proverbs 3:5 says, with all your heart, and don't lean upon your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, God, and He's going to direct your paths. It's going to be okay. I remember reading a book, Good to Great, and in that book, if you've ever read it, you remember the story that he talks about, a good organization is like a bus. And it's more important to find the right people to get on the bus and then positioning them so that together they all go down to their destination. The fit will work out later. But one of the best things I think I've learned is this: is find someone who's really got a passion, who's got good values, who has integrity, and then ask them the question, what do you have a passion to do here? What would fulfill you at this organization? See what they say. And here's why. Because if you encourage them to follow their passion and you can find a place for them, they will outwork virtually any other job you would have ever placed them in, because they feel like they have ownership of that role. That's so important. This step 3 is about daily habits that build legacy. And I love this short little video by Doug Stewart, 5.5 mentors that will change your life. It's TEDx. And I'm just going to share this real quick, but I think it's really important, men, that the greatest fulfillment you will find in life is when you mentor someone else. Check this out.
I came across this quote that changed the way I thought about mentorship. It's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, "In my walks, every man I meet is superior to me in some way. And in that, I learn from him." I realized that maybe mentorship was not this thing that I had to convince someone that was in a position that I wanted to be in one day to take me under their wing, to do everything that they said to do, and hope to goodness they give me an opportunity. Maybe I have more control over this mentor thing. As I began to operate under this definition of mentorship, 5.5 mentors began to quickly appear in my life. These 5.5 mentors have been responsible for taking a kid who couldn't spell and helping him to become a man who makes a living writing things. A kid that had a speech impediment to a kid that talks to groups.
You know, I like what he says there. This is a guy who struggled his entire life, and at 11 years old, couldn't even do his ABCs. He was a victim, ADHD, bipolar disorder, a number of issues, and felt his whole life he was a victim. But he had to take responsibility for his learning. And through the power of this mentor, this young lady who mentored him, completely transformed his life, went on to become very successful and teaches people how to speak. And he couldn't even, like I said, didn't know his ABCs. So it's so important, men, that this world is so, listen, if there was a job that hasn't been filled and desperately needs to be filled, it's the job of a mentor. So today I give you this challenge. Identify one younger man in your life, your son, nephew, coworker, friend, and reach out this week and how you can support that man. Then commit to one intentional act of mentorship. Is the act going to be take him for a cup of coffee and ask him, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? Is the act, going to be take him under a wing and getting some of the help he needs? There are so many things. My brother-in-law, who's a doctor, has gone through a tough time. And my mother-in-law, his mother, was brokenhearted one day and just, she began to weep and cry and said she's overwhelmed with grief to see her son suffering. And I immediately jumped into action, not knowing really what to do, but with the help of his brother and my wife, his sister, we got him the help he needed. And he's on the road to recovery. But, it's so needed out there. And you may never get a thank you, by the way, guys. You may never hear that thank you. They may move on with their lives, but just knowing that you have invested into a man and helped change their lives, there's an eternal reward that God has. And it's all part of really my philosophy and what I teach about the one-day gift, that in life, we've got to learn to enjoy the adventure, finding treasure in our present, in our today. And, that present that God gives us in a gift, we should open it up every day and look down in there for that treasure, because it's there. And it's that treasure that's going to lay up for eternity. So those little things that you've done, and I'll challenge you this, if you've been a little bit selfish, maybe even narcissistic, and you don't have the time for it, here's the reality. Time is running out in life. I'm 60 years old, and the average person lives to 80. The reality is that it's time now for you to take stock of your life and realize it's time for me to help someone else. So use this moment, as an opportunity to start fresh in your life. I encourage you to find that friend. And by the way, if this has been helpful, if you've got a story you want to share, put it in the comment. Men, guys, the guys who watch these videos, they jump down and they look at the comments. That's more important. I want to see men become better because of that. So until next time, guys, make sure you like, you subscribe, you share this, keep us in your prayers. And together, we're on a journey to become mighty TMF Warriors. God bless you. See you next time.